Hello, I'm Katya and welcome to my channel. Today I'm taking you inside one of Buffalo's most iconic hotel, Richardson Hotel. The massive complex was originally built as the Buffalo State Hospice for the Insane, a bold attempt at reforming mental health care. This wasn't just about treatment, it was about hope, nature, and healing through the architecture. But over time, the vision faded and the hospital grew overcrowded. Treatments changed. Decades of wear and neglect left the once majestic building abandoned, locked behind fences and covered in whispers of ghost stories and mystery. Then something incredible happened. A portion of the structure was rebuilt and remade at the Richardson Hotel, blending its historic stone towers and Gothic arches with stunning modern design. Now you can actually stay here. What once held the stories of thousands of patients now welcome guests from around the world, blending history, luxury, and a little bit of the supernatural.
Patient rooms were tiny. They were only 9 feet by 11 feet, and that was on purpose. It was really to encourage patients to spend just their sleep time there and then spend all their daytime in the day room. Occupational therapy and craft work was very popular as forms of treatment and a way to keep busy if you were a patient. Basket weaving was very popular, painting, putting on plays.
Gestures can you do that say that this is an important place? And this is a culturally important place.
And in 1986, it received the highest distinction as a National Historic Landmark.
The National Historic Landmark gives it some protection. It says this is a very special place to all of us, but it does not give protection from demolition. It really still requires a committed group of people to see it through. Despite the title of National Historic Landmark, the buildings continued to deteriorate. And its future was further threatened in 2000 when New York State placed the campus on a list of surplus properties to be sold. Sam Hoyt, when he was in the assembly, was able to take this property off of the for sale list, and that was one of the key efforts that led to saving it.
Also at this time, the Preservation Coalition started a lawsuit.
So the last patient moved out of this building in 1974. From that point until 2006, when the Richardson Center Corporation takes over, it is largely abandoned by the state.
The vacancy of the Richardson Olmsted campus, plus the untimely decline of the city, left few resources for any care and upkeep, and no real vision for the future. Stanford Lipsey had been an enormous advocate for architectural preservation throughout the city. This would be his next big project. He knew it would take a substantial financial commitment on behalf of the state.
There were so many community members who said, that's never going to happen. And by golly, Stan showed him up, as he always did.
Stan could be very persuasive, really pragmatic in his approach, just following the same lead until he got what he wanted or desired. And so I think he worked the governor pretty hard.
In 2003, Governor Pataki earmarked the money, $100 million, to rehabilitate the buildings and grounds. But that full amount didn't survive the political process. Over $76 million remained. That was enough to begin the effort.
$76.5 million opened the door for all kinds of possibilities with this complex. And 2 years after that, there was the establishment of a board that was led by Stanford Lipsey, the publisher again in Buffalo News, that oversaw what was to happen here.
Too many organizations think too small, so they get a local board together. They may not even be careful about who they put on their local board. But if I wanted this to be a national treasure, I had to have prestigious people. And so that's what I did. I went out and got people from a number of different disciplines, and it made all the difference in the world.
He really wanted to be a board of doers. So it was a very, very active working board, and it remains that way to this day.
They received a financial commitment from the state in 2006, active construction years later. What were they doing all that time? As it turns out, quite a lot. This place needed to be studied. So they did a historic structures report, a cultural landscape report, an environmental impact study. They even brought in the Urban Land Institute. And they needed to stop deterioration. And fast. The first...
It didn't get any worse. My first memory of being here is buildings surrounded by a chain link fence, and everything about it said you're not supposed to be here.
We knew that for decades and decades and decades, this complex had a negative impact on the community around it. It was a big, scary, empty, falling apart set of buildings. And we wanted to reverse that, not just for the building itself, but for the people who live around it.
Buffalo's had a lot of divisive development efforts.
Plan and the public, because it would enhance tourism to the region. It was named Hotel Henry, a nod to Henry Hobson Richardson himself.
One of the most historic features is the 210-foot-long corridors. Usually people think of historic features as like a fancy piece of plaster or a beautiful fireplace, but in this case it's the volume of that space and the importance of the use of it.
This hallway is so impressive. I mean, the length, the width,
It's massive. It's almost...
Some of the funding of the rehabilitation was through preservation tax credits. That means there are things you can change architecturally, but many things you cannot.
Any projects here take vision. You need to ensure that you're adhering to state historic preservation guidelines, and those are rigorous. National Park Service guidelines, even more rigorous. It's certainly a challenge for any developer or even an end user, because the building really can't be adjusted or modified very much.
We picked
to host a much more ambitious event to honor the history of the site.
We thought it would be a pretty great idea to have an event where the building was highlighted and the grounds were highlighted.
The evening featured not only the orchestra and a grand light show, but educated everyone on the history behind the building, which many were learning for the first time.
We loved the idea that it told a story about mental health and about the evolution of this building. We thought maybe 5,000 people would come, but that night 15,000 people came. Every single spot was taken. It was really